and welcome to World Talks. My name is Diane Francis. President Zelensky's recent meetings in Washington and London have underscored growing tensions in the transatlantic alliance. Now, his confrontation with President Donald Trump sparked worries over the future of U.S. support, while European leaders vowed to ramp up their backing. But the big question remains, is the EU prepared to step up, or does it still rely on Washington? Now, joining me now to discuss the unfolding events is Diane Francis, Senior Fellow at Atlantic Council. Dan, welcome to the program. Such a pleasure of having you here.
Thank you.
Dan, it's been really such a high-stakes weekend in global diplomacy. But let me ask you this first. Now, the American public, what do they think of this Zelensky-Trump meeting that took place at the Oval Office?
My instinct is that, and of course, I'm biased because my sympathies were, of course, with Zelensky and Ukraine, as opposed to what Vance and Trump were doing, which was bullying and doing it on camera. It was really unacceptable. But at the end of the day, people know that Zelensky is the underdog. And Ukraine and Zelensky are victims. They're not the perpetrator. And you shouldn't be beating up someone who's gone through so many horrific experiences. We're talking about Zelensky. Everybody knows him. They know the brand. They know this guy has lived in a bunker for 3 years. He's been subjected to assassination attempts. His country has been turned to rubble. People have been murdered. And yet he is being badgered and bullied by Donald Trump, who was a draft dodger, okay? It is really horrific. So people that didn't vote for Trump, of course, they thought this was deplorable. But I would submit that even people who did vote for Trump, and I know many of them, are also ashamed at the way it was done.
How would you say that the Kremlin chief was looking at all of this?
I think he opened up the champagne bottles. I think they loved every minute of it because this serves their purpose to divide the alliance that's against them. And so, divide and conquer. That was the whole idea. And, it just plays into Putin's hands. However, in this regard, I don't think it does. I think the good thing about what happened was that now we see the acceleration of Europe uniting and militarizing. They know they cannot count on NATO with America in it or American troops and protection regardless. And so if it does only one good thing, that's it.
We've been talking so much about European unity now, particularly following this weekend's events. Dan, do you think that Europe is going to be successful in really stepping up that support and gearing up together and particularly unifying and thinking possibly that they could be united and they won't need any support from any is may not be the correct word to use here, but that won't need as much support from the United States in terms of helping Ukraine?
Look, Europe collectively is economically bigger than the United States. It's a very rich place. Is it divided into a bunch of little pieces that sometimes fight and have fought over the centuries against one another? Yes. But right now you have a European Union whose top officials are completely united in their need, in understanding the need for a European armed force. This has to happen, and this can happen faster than people can understand because there's training and expertise. Now what you have in Europe, led by Poland, I must say, the moral center of Europe in all of this, you now have the two nuclear powers in Europe, France and Britain, organizing an expeditionary force to provide troops to support Ukraine if there's a ceasefire that is imposed on them. And so this is a monumental step forward. And you are talking about two countries who are rich, who have established militaries, and the rest will fall in line because I think if I'm Moldova, if I'm Latvia, if I'm even Italy, I look at the way that Trump and Vance ganged up on a smaller country that is in trouble. The way they did that, I know that I'm going to sign on to an armed force in Europe. The other important thing is the German election. Friedrich Merz is a pro-unification into and militarization of Europe. This is new, and they have the biggest pocketbook. So they may not have much of an army, but he knows there has to be a European armed force.
Diane, you're talking again about this unity and about an armed force, but now Europe's security landscape, of course, is developing rapidly. What long-term strategies specifically would you say, European allies are going to have to adopt in order to deter further Russian aggression?
Well, I think that Europe has been remiss in its own security. So now that there is a commitment to create an armed force, there also has to be more of a commitment to empower their defense security services such as they exist now. Cyber attacks, what's been going on in the Baltic Sea with the Russians cutting sea cables and all kinds of important infrastructure attacks against Europe without repercussions, that's got to end. And by the way, they're doing it with Chinese technology. And so Europe has to get really tough and grow a backbone, not only in terms of its defense, but also diplomatically. It has to, in no uncertain terms, concerning the Baltic Sea alone, once the evidence is gathered that the Chinese technology is behind the ability to cut the cables, I think that China has to be delivered an ultimatum. Stop giving anything to Russia or look for another market to sell your consumer goods.
Then let me tell you this, Poland's President Andrzej Duda did suggest that Zelenskyy, find a way to talk to Trump again. But now what cards would you say that Zelenskyy should be ready to pull in order to get back on that, on those talks with Donald Trump? And do you think that this minerals deal will be signed?
Well, the minerals deal couldn't be signed by Zelenskyy, which is the point he raised in the meeting when they exploded, without a security guarantee. As I wrote in my Substack piece today, even the cleaning ladies in Kyiv know if you don't have soldiers on the ground after a ceasefire or peace deal, the Russians will invade again. It's naive to think they wouldn't. So the fact that Starmer and Macron are pulling together Europeans, and Poland, of course, will be head and shoulders above everybody else, to pull together a peacekeeping force so that doesn't happen must happen. And that is the only way Trump is going to get his triumphant peace deal with Russia. Okay. And the good news is that his national security advisor, after this nonsense in the Oval Office, this humiliation of Zelenskyy, said that the Americans would have no problem with supporting a European expeditionary force to peacekeep Ukraine because Americans don't want to do that. That's important because, and I'll tell you why that's important, Putin doesn't want to hear that. Putin is stipulating he doesn't want any NATO country members to put a boot on the ground in Ukraine for peacekeeping purposes. So now we have a situation where either Putin agrees or this is derailed altogether. And so this story is not over. And besides which, I think that Macron and Starmer will, soften up Trump. And Trump now can sign a mineral deal without having to put his boots on the ground because the Europeans are doing it for him. He owes them because the mineral deal is worthwhile, is valuable.
Diane Francis, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, thank you so much for all your input and insight and for being with us here on World Talks this evening.
Good. Let's pray.
And that completes this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diane Francis. Thanks for watching and do stay tuned for more news and features.